Hi there. I'm still in the process of my research on the intellectual capital. And as I said before, that intellectual capital is based on knowledge and information. And that knowledge, I call it is ethical knowledge. And also it is based on, beside this knowledge and information, it's also based on technology and telecommunication as well. That is, of course, as I say, to get information, to spread the information, and to communicate the information to the stakeholder for their decision making. Now, while I'm searching, I notice that the knowledge and ethical knowledge is not only important or a key for the economic success, but also they are, or it is a key, in fact, for reinvigorating democracy. And now the proliferation of information, in fact, it's increased and it's enhanced the surveillance and the erosion of a human right. But at the same time, it's in fact to provide an anti-hegemonic and grassroots and NGO network, which is in fact related to non-government groups. Okay, some people they like it, some people they don't like it, because as I said, these groups might be good, or sometimes it is not good. But anyhow, whether good or bad, of course it will, it has an impact on the government and the government's power. Now, the problem I faced when I deal with the intellectual capital, which is based on ethical knowledge, I face there is a problem. And the problem is that I can summarize it, or in one word, I call it is knowledge economy. That knowledge economy, in fact, it's create a problem because it's impact the information and the ethical information. And of course, it has no impact on the technology and the and the telecommunication technology. But of course, as I say, by communicating the information, by spreading the information, since we have something called the knowledge economy, of course, we will have less information or undisclosed information, okay, for the stakeholders in general. So, an example of this problem, or of this knowledge economy, when we look at the traditional accounting, look at the discrepancy between the book value and the market value. So the book value, which is within the corporation, and the market value is within the market, and it is different. So we have to, again, make recalculation, and sometimes we have to make reconciliation between them. And still there is an argument that some asset must be recorded at their book value, some of asset, like for example, the intangible asset must be recorded in their market value, and etc. So this is just an example of this economic, or as we call it, knowledge economy. Now, when also I deal and make my research for the intellectual capital, I notice that we have to make a difference between something called the corporate social reporting, the corporate social report, which is, we call it the CSR, and the intellectual capital report or reporting, which is called as ICR. Now, although there is they share the interests, but we have to differentiate between them. The corporate social report is a report, or it is a process which in fact pay the attention for the environment in general. For example, solving the pollution problem. Whereas the ICR, again, it is the intellectual capital report. It is deal with the human capital, and the intellectual capital reporting consider the human capital as an asset. Now, when we look at the accounting in general, maybe they focus on, on the environment, and they focus even on the in the intellectual capital report, but not from the capital or human capital side. They focus it from the accounting side when we deal or when they deal with the intangible asset, for example, under the IAS 38 or International Accounting Standard 38, which deal with the intangible asset and how we consider this asset as intangible, how we report it in the, let's say, as an asset or as an expense based on some condition. For example, like when the asset or this intangible asset, like for example, let's say, goodwill, or like, for example, the patent, okay, whatever is that. They say that, well, this is what it should have, let's say, should be identifiable, and also it should have future benefit, and its cost can be measures, okay? And if it is not within this condition, it should be expense. That means shown in the income statement rather in the balance sheet. Now, yes, it's deal with that part. So my consideration is not about the intangible asset, because it's already discussed, it's already shown, it's already solved, it's already, also, they give us, as I say, as a standard, and they give it IAS 38. But what about the human capital? What about the, as we call it, the intellectual capital? Intellectual capital, when we say it's still the traditional accounting concepts and method. In fact, it didn't deal with the human capital. Now, as I said, my purpose of my research is to explore how the organization should, construe and analyze and report this intellectual, capital, and how it should record it and report it as an asset of the organization. Okay, now, as I said, when also I make a research on this part of the organization, which is intellectual capital or human capital, you can call it, I noticed that it is part of the corporation strategy and responsibility within its human resource and its human resource management. So therefore, we have to deal with it carefully. But unfortunately, as I said, when we talk about the intellectual capital, we have to deal with the business principles. Of course, we are wrong and we are naive when we say there is no relationship and there is no link between the business principles and the intellectual capital. Intellectual capital based on ethical knowledge, and this ethical knowledge, so it's very important in the organization, and we have to relate it to the business principle. Well, there is in fact quite a mystery, let's say, or interesting mysteries between the two. And some researchers find there is in fact they say it is very difficult if I mean to deal with both of them, with the ethics and the business principle. I say, well, we have to be very careful. We have to deal with it carefully. Yes, I know there is asymmetry and an interesting asymmetry between them. Okay, but we should not keep silent. We have to search. We have to find. In fact, we notice that the business principles, when we talk, and even myself, when I make the research, or still I'm in searching that, I notice that now when we talk about the business principle, especially in the economic part of the business, we notice that the moral sentiments are absent. It's like the companies or the organization have no feeling. Their main concern is about profit maximization, whether directly or indirectly. We have to maximize our profit, and they ignore as I say, the moral sentiments. And this is why we have the problem with some accountants. They are like, they thinking are very rigid. They're dealing with profit. They're dealing with cash. They're dealing with dollars, with pound, with dinars, okay, with debiting and crediting, increasing, decreasing. But they ignore this important ethical, moral sentiments. It is there in the business. We have to look at it. We have to deal with it. And we notice that the accounting or traditional accounting, usually, as I said, yes, it is rudimentary. Yes, I noticed that it is rudimentary. It is very basic. It did not deal with ethics and within the accounting function. Okay, so I noticed that also that when I, let's say, take more steps in accounting and ethics, I noticed that in fact many accounting transactions and many economic transactions and many business transactions, in fact, there are a raft of morals there. We have to search for them. We have to look at them carefully. So while I'm doing my research, in the future, of course, I'm going to focus on a number of points to end my research with a relationship between ethics and accounting, and between ethics and intellectual accounting, between also the let's say intellectual accounting and the ethical knowledge. So the main point I'm going to concentrate and come with let's say comments or solution or whatever you call it. I will look at the relationship between the intellectual capital and performance. I will look at the practice of reporting intellectual capital, how they report it. And I will look at the impact of this type of a new asset and or say on management accounting and control system. I will look at the identification and the classification of intangibles. I will look at the capital market use of intellectual information. I will look at the interface between companies and financial analysis on the issue of intellectual capital. So that is, as I said, my main information, my main idea about my research, and I will feed you from time to time about my finding. And from now I say thank you very much and see you later.